Hello friends, my name is Ryan. I'm going to tell you a story named The Fatal Bus Crash: Schoolchildren's Tragic End, which is a very amazing story full of twists. So, let's start. It was a quiet winter morning in the small town of Willow Creek. The roads were coated in a thin layer of frost, and the air carried the crisp scent of pine and distant chimneys. The school bus, as vibrant and yellow as the sun, rolled through the sleepy streets, picking up cheerful children with their backpacks and laughter. Among them was Sarah, a bright-eyed 10-year-old, whose curiosity often landed her in trouble. Beside her sat Jack, her best friend and partner in mischief, always with a mischievous grin and a pocket full of secrets. As the bus moved further away from the town center, the scenery shifted from neat houses to vast, open fields bordered by dense woods. The driver, Mr. Carter, a kind but reserved man in his late 50s, hummed an old tune as he navigated the winding roads. It was just another routine day. Or so they thought. Halfway through the route, as the bus approached the narrow bridge over Blackwater Creek, an eerie silence fell over the children. It was as if the air itself had grown heavier. Sarah glanced out the window and noticed something peculiar, a figure standing at the edge of the bridge. The figure was cloaked in black, motionless, and facing the rushing water below. She nudged Jack and whispered, "Do you see that?" Jack squinted and nodded, his usual grin replaced by unease. "Yeah. That's weird. Who would stand there in this cold?" As the bus drew closer, the figure turned its head slightly, just enough for Sarah to catch a glimpse of its pale, expressionless face. A chill ran down her spine. She tried to shake off the feeling, convincing herself it was just someone playing a prank or a lost traveler. But deep down, she couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. The bus rumbled onto the bridge, and that's when it happened. The figure stepped onto the road, directly in the path of the bus. Mr. Carter slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the icy surface. The children screamed as the bus skidded uncontrollably. Time seemed to slow as the vehicle veered to the side, crashing through the flimsy railing and plunging into the icy waters below. Everything went black. When Sarah regained consciousness, she was submerged in freezing water, her lungs burning as she struggled to reach the surface. She could hear muffled cries and the groaning metal of the sinking bus. Desperation fueled her as she managed to break through the water, gasping for air. Around her, children were flailing, calling for help. The bridge loomed above like a sinister shadow, and the figure was nowhere to be seen. Jack surfaced beside her, coughing and shivering. "We have to get to the others," he stammered, his teeth chattering. Together, they swam back to the wreckage, helping as many of their friends as they could. But the water was unforgiving, and the current dragged some away before they could be saved. By the time rescue teams arrived, the scene was one of chaos and heartbreak. Out of the 25 children on the bus, only 12 survived. Mr. Carter's body was found still strapped to his seat, his hands gripping the wheel as if trying to protect the children until the very end. The survivors were rushed to the hospital, but the nightmare was far from over. Sarah, recovering in her hospital bed, couldn't stop thinking about the figure on the bridge. She told the police, but they dismissed it as a hallucination brought on by trauma. Jack, however, believed her. "I saw it too, Sarah. That thing, it wasn't human." Days turned into weeks, and life in Willow Creek tried to return to normal. But for Sarah and Jack, normal was no longer an option. They began to investigate the bridge, determined to uncover the truth. What they discovered sent shivers down their spines. Blackwater Creek Bridge had a dark history. Decades ago, a bus carrying children from a nearby orphanage had met the same fate, plunging into the creek during a storm. All lives were lost, and the tragedy was blamed on a driver who supposedly fell asleep at the wheel. But locals whispered of a shadowy figure seen on the bridge that night, just as Sarah and Jack had described. Determined to find answers, Sarah and Jack returned to the bridge one cold evening, armed with flashlights and a recorder. The air was thick with tension as they approached the spot where the figure had stood. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and their breath became visible in the icy air. A faint whisper echoed around them, growing louder with each passing second. "Why are you here?" a voice hissed, sending them spinning around. The figure emerged from the shadows, its pale face illuminated by the moonlight. "You shouldn't have come." Sarah mustered all her courage and stepped forward. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure tilted its head, as if considering her question. "I am what remains of those forgotten," it said, its voice echoing with sorrow. "They must remember. They must pay." Before Sarah could respond, the figure vanished, leaving behind a chilling silence. The recorder in Jack's hand was still running, capturing the eerie exchange. They rushed back to town, their minds racing with fear and determination. The next day, they presented the recording to the police. While some officers dismissed it as a prank, one older detective, Officer Hargrove, took them seriously. He had grown up in Willow Creek and remembered the stories of the orphanage tragedy. "This isn't the first time I've heard about the figure," he admitted. "But no one's ever been brave enough to investigate." With Officer Hargrove's help, Sarah and Jack uncovered more about the orphanage tragedy. The children who died that night had been mistreated, their cries for help ignored by those in power. The figure, it seemed, was a manifestation of their collective anguish, seeking justice for the lives lost. Together, they devised a plan to honor the memory of the orphanage children. A memorial was erected near the bridge, and a ceremony was held to acknowledge the tragedy and the town's role in neglecting the orphans. As the names of the children were read aloud, a cold wind swept through the crowd, carrying with it a sense of peace. That night, Sarah and Jack returned to the bridge one last time. The figure appeared once more, but this time, its face was no longer pale and expressionless. Instead, it bore a faint smile. "Thank you," it whispered before fading into the night. The tragedy of the bus crash would never be forgotten, but it brought to light the importance of remembering and honoring those who came before. Sarah and Jack's bravery had not only uncovered the truth, but also brought peace to restless souls. And so, friends, this is the story of the fatal bus crash schoolchildren's tragic end. If you enjoyed this tale of mystery and courage, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's keep these stories alive, together. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.